Lake Forest podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Michelle Parno has lived and worked in Lake Forest for over 2 decades. Michelle's lending experience, when combined with her real estate expertise, makes her an invaluable asset to her clients as they navigate their home buying or selling process. Call Michelle now at 847-528-8721, 847-528-8721. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Laracy & Company CPAs, founded in 2010 by Lake Forest's own Brian Laracy, specializes in tax preparation and bookkeeping services. Earning the People Love Us on Yelp award, their process is straightforward. Just upload, review, and file. For a free quote, visit LaracyCPA.com now. That's LARISEYCPA.com. I'm excited to share with you something special from our Lake Forest community, the Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa, located at 775 North Bank Lane in Lake Forest near Wisconsin Avenue. This just isn't any spa. They offer an amazing blend of traditional spa services plus the added benefit of medical procedures and treatments. In a relaxing and luxurious spa environment, you can enjoy a range of cosmetic and aesthetic treatments. These are all performed under the supervision of top medical professionals. The Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa provides skin care, facial rejuvenation, body contouring, laser hair removal, Botox, dermal fillers, chemical peels, and much more. What's great is that each treatment is tailored not just to enhance your appearance, but also to address specific skin concerns and to promote overall well-being. So if you're looking to pamper yourself and take your beauty routine to the next level, give the Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa a call at 224-768-8028 or visit them at their location on North Bank Lane. It's an experience your skin will thank you for. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters, Otto, John C., Helen, Herrick, JM, and Paul G. Skoo, 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 skoo. What?
I this is the first time ever I've been on this podcast where I've got 95 different texts or emails on what time something started. I mean, it's like
Change.
the excitement is overcoming me. First it's 9:30, now it's 10, then it's 9:30, now it's 10.
Hey, somebody needed to get a bipolar straightened out.
I guess. Good Lord.
How you doing, Scooby-Dooby-Doo?
I'm good. Trying to get
you got
going today.
You got all your list of questions for our special guest?
I'm just gonna listen. all you Randy lovers that thought that Prue was gonna change the world.
I take umbrage if I knew what umbrage meant.
If that's true.
Joe Weiss.
Joe Weiss.
Morning.
Sporting the LF with the spear while it lasts.
Out of my cold, dead hands, J.B. Pritzker.
When's he going to go talk to Congress? How's that going to go?
I don't know exactly when his appearance is. I didn't read that far down on the story. I'm sure it'll be a PR op for both sides. Nothing will be accomplished. As is the case with 99% of testimony in front of Congress.
Well, he's volunteering.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll get his sound bites in for his presidential run.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
And the Republicans will get their sound bites in for their base. What's that?
You're a closet JB guy.
No. Nope.
Is Nikki going to run again?
Probably not. I think she had her shot, but it's too bad.
Oh. Why don't
you guys keep bringing it up, but I stand by my statement that she would have done better in a general than Trump.
She's younger than Trump. Why is she quitting? She a quitter?
I think the party has gone a different direction, and that's the next nominee will be either J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio.
Okay. While we're waiting here and waiting for Ara to eat all the green M&Ms in the room there,
At the
Matt City.
orthodontist office.
Yeah, the city. Does he have pop? Does he give out popcorn in that office?
Candy corn.
Marshmallows. What was the one, the candy that had the marshmallows in it?
Bit of
I
honey.
don't know, but ask Skoo about candy corn.
Ah, love it. God, I get that. You got me getting some. I need to get some.
We need some
Ooh, you got the camo
popcorn.
hat on. You look like you're going hunting.
I am Joe.
He's hunting for
Corn
some
hunting.
Serbs.
Oh my God, he's here. He's here.
Arrow! Arrow!
I promised I'd be here. I promised I'd be here.
Oh,
Wow.
Alderman Goshgarian.
You must not be an alderman anymore.
I must not be an alderman. No, I am not. I turned off on
Former Alderman Ara Goshgarian.
I'm Ara. I'm Ara. I'm Joe's
And you
neighbor.
got the dental equipment behind you there. So.
Yeah, sorry, I'm at work, so I carved out an hour. Happy to be here.
And Joe's more happy than you can ever imagine.
Skoo, you're
I got an alderman. I got a second
guy.
alderman. Two aldermen in a row.
Skoo, you're an angry guy lately. I think you got to go on vacation or something.
Not angry.
No?
you got a couple peaks here and there of anger. Skoo, come on.
Not anger, just kind of facts.
Well, that's debatable.
Okay.
That is debatable.
Speaking of facts, we're now joined by factually the best pizza in town, right? Jeff Urso.
What's up, Joe?
Yeah.
How you doing, guys?
Hey, Jeff, I just wanted to say thank you, by the way. I got out of council late, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I made a call to my pizza place, and the voice sounded very familiar, and I said, Jeff? And he said, Ara? And I said, I need a pizza. And Jeff said, oh, we just shut down the ovens. And he could hear me kind of groan, and I said, oh, and he said, I'll turn them back on for you. So thank you very much. I was very
For the record, in compliance with the ethics ordinance, Ara paid for the pizza.
Yes, so. I did. I did.
What was the microwave setting?
Oh, you're hard, Pete. You're hard. Your reputation precedes yourself, as well as your shadow, by the way.
Oh my goodness, that's right. Don't stand behind me when it's 2 a.m. in a bar. No. Ara Goshgarian, what a great send-off they gave you the other night.
A couple of items to present to Alderman Goshgarian. He's seen enough of these in his 6 years that hopefully he knows how this goes. But as is tradition and custom for the city, we'd like to present you with a certificate to plant a tree in your honor anywhere in the 3rd Ward. And you coordinate that with our forestry division. And then, of course, we have one more gift. No way, shape, or form has to do with my personality.
To boats.
And before I turn it over to the mayor and to the city council, I'd just like to say a few words, and I will keep it brief because, again, we are running a bit late tonight. But I just want to make a few comments on behalf of the city staff in thanking Alderman Goshgarian for what was a tremendous 6 years. And I think commenting on behalf of our city staff, I think the first thing I'd like to acknowledge was just what a strong advocate and supporter you have always been for the city staff. That's not to suggest that you don't challenge us and ask tough questions and hold us to very high standards. You do, but ultimately that's what leads to good governance. It's what makes us better employees, and we've always known that we've had strong support from you and are very appreciative of that. I will also note our appreciation collectively of what we always saw as just a sincere and genuine interest in understanding the nuances of city operations, really wanting to understand what our staff did on a day-to-day basis, the complexities of how all of our operations combine together to their best effect, and whether that was participating in, public safety, citizens academies, your service on the Public Works Committee, even doing ride-alongs in the middle of the night during snowplow season. It was evident to staff just how much you really had a curiosity for all that we did. And a lot of the work that our staff does, it's generally appreciated by the public, but they don't really understand all that goes into the operations behind the scenes, and really, again, just value your interest and curiosity in that. And then finally, I'll just conclude as comments I had made, a couple of weeks ago to you, but I think as a role model to others on the council, your commitment to the city's governance model, to our city's processes, understanding that upholding the integrity of those processes is more important than getting one's way on any individual vote or outcome, is an incredible legacy that you leave. And I know you've spent a lot of time communicating to the council, to the staff, to the public, a forward-looking vision about leaving this place better for the next city council. And having had the pleasure of working with you for the full 6 years of your tenure on the council, thinking about all that's been accomplished, I can say with confidence that if the goal is to pass the baton and leave it a little better than what you inherited, your term as an alderman has been an incredible success. So on behalf of the city staff, we're going to miss you. I know you won't be too far away, but thank you for your guidance and your leadership. And with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Okay. I will make comments first, followed by the respective aldermen. And I would just like to say this for Ara. Number one, I'm going to keep this very short because, you saved the longest meeting for last in my term. But I have to say this. Ara has been an incredible asset to the city council. For the 4 years before my time here, he served through what I would believe is one of the more tumultuous periods of the city council. There were, numerous issues, including COVID, that had to be navigated, and there was a fair amount of contentious debate at city council meetings, and Ara always acquitted himself very well through that period, being a stabilizing force and keeping his eye on the prize, if you will. One of the things that I will say about working with Ara is what you see is not always what you get. I would particularly say that in executive sessions, Ara could really start over here and end up over here. He's very open mind, willing to critically think, listen to what's being presented to him, even if his initial sense is that what he's hearing he doesn't like. He's still willing to absorb the information and make decisions based on facts and realities and not emotions. And he is, like I would say most Armenians, a very emotional fellow, but he doesn't let that get in his way of doing the job at hand. And he is, as many of you know, fairly good at sort of tightening the wires every once in a while to make sure that, you feel his impact. But I've really appreciated working with him. He's given me great advice and guidance. He's my go-to for Robert's Rules of Order, as you found out this evening. And so I would just like to say thank you very much for everything you've given to the city and to me personally. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, it's been a long 6 years. You and I have worked together going back 6 years. You ran a contested election successfully. But you being here in this political life in Lake Forest goes back actually 10 years. And it goes back to a couple of events that took place in Ward 3 with Jack Reisenberg and Randy Tack. There were issues that came up 10 years ago regarding the third rail, which you remember, and also Whole Foods. And Jack Reisenberg and Randy Tack held meetings, preliminary meetings to meet with the public and discuss both of these issues. I remember the one in particular, the one at Elwha in the barn, in which the room was packed to discuss Elwha. Both Jack and Randy were pressed against the back wall with no place to go. And I do remember being one of two people there that were in favor of Whole Foods. That was a whole nother experience. But the thing I took away from that meeting was the ability of both Jack and Randy to address the audience, to handle the questions, to do it in a professional manner, to not become the issue, but to just address the issue. And both Randy and Jack were going to be retiring from council. I was on Caucus, and at the time, it became important to identify people that could do what Randy and Jack did. 8 years ago, we identified a couple candidates, Jim Preschlak and yourself. Lots of interviews, lots of meetings. Jim Preschlak was identified as the candidate then, and then 6 years ago, you ran a contested election. I've been by your side through all of that. I've sat in this room. I watched when these were on online, and you did an excellent job at counterbalancing kind of, as Randy said, a dysfunctional somewhat city council. And between you and Jim, a lot of good things got done, but it was difficult. I know you both threatened me that you'd get me on council, but you thought it was going to be in Ward 3. I wanted to bring us up to the current. And a year ago, I went to a couple transparency meetings. And during that time, a lot of people presented. There were issues regarding the caucus. And I just wanted to mention your opponent, Joann, was at that meeting. And towards the end of the meeting, she raised her hand. And she stood up and she addressed the entire audience. And she thanked the people that helped her run a campaign. And she said, although I'm disappointed to have not got on city council, I have no regrets for the experience. I thought that the caucus ran a fair and open election, and that my opponent was a gentleman. And that's how you win elections. So I want to thank you on my behalf for the work you did with the city council, and just want to leave you with a true compliment from an opponent.
Thank you. Ara, thank you for all the guidance you've given us, especially when things get sticky. Thank you for always seeing the long game, never looking for short-term game, but looking at what big picture is going to be the ramifications of the short-term decision. Thank you for showing us to be mindful of precedents. What this council does is going to impact other councils. And thank you for keeping us aware of that when making decisions. And thank you for always being available to me whenever I've had a question or a phone call. You were always just a text away, and I really, really appreciate it. Your love of Lake Forest is unparalleled as far as I'm concerned. It's clear in all the projects you take on, the rescue boat. I didn't know about the ride-alongs in the snowplow. That's great. I'm very impressed with that. And championing our community every opportunity you have. But I think as much as I'm going to miss you, I think the thing I'm really going to miss the most is seeing you wear your Lake Forest polo around town. So have fun. Keep wearing the shirt.
Ara, thank you. There's two quick things that I want to say. You're thoughtful and you're to the point. But I think the best characteristic that I've been able to witness is your willingness to always try to make something better. And I think the city of Lake Forest is in better shape because of that. I value you as a friend and a colleague, and I wish you the best. So thanks for all you've done.
Doc, it has been an absolute pleasure, being with you the last 5.5 years. You have been a stalwart leader on this council. It's been touched on, when you and I came on, and you certainly saw this more than I did. It was tough times up here. There was some very independent minds in this council. The value of this council is having 8 independent minds. That's what makes this body the body it is. But we could always count on you. As I was trying to put some reflection on this time together, defender of the faith. I mean, you really were. I mean, you made sure that big personalities got managed, discussions stayed focused to the extent we could rein in those discussions at all. But that was certainly a great example to me coming on as the new guy back then. Over the last, this time on council, you and I've had the pleasure of serving on a couple committees with you that you chaired. And even though these committee meetings are all open to the public, I can probably count on a hand if anyone's actually shown up for them. But it's as evident here at the dais as it is in these smaller, more intimate settings. You provoke thoughtful conversation, discourse, challenging everybody, not, as Jason pointed out, challenging staff, but it's challenging everyone, your fellow committee members to look at bigger picture, maybe see things differently. And even as Randy pointed out, you're open-minded and willing to take in impressions and weigh new facts that come in front of you. And I think you've taught that to all of us, how valuable that is. In any event, you've been a great leader, great role model, become a tremendous friend over the last couple of years, and this is certainly not goodbye. You will be missed, but as was also mentioned, you were leaving the council in as healthy of a place as certainly I've ever seen it, and that is in no small part to the contributions you gave us. Thank you.
So to really recognize the service and recognition of Alderman Goshgarian, the best way to honor him is with a top 10 list. Okay. So without further ado, number 10, he's the only alderman who can simultaneously straighten policy and teeth. Ara brought his orthodontic precision to city council work, never afraid to realign things when they seemed out of place. Number 9, a lifelong Lake Forest resident. He knows this town like the back of his dental mirror. You can't buy that kind of perspective, especially when it comes with hometown pride and a long-term view. Number 8, I believe he actually read every packet before the meetings. Yes, every page. You came prepared, highlighted with comments and questions. 3 times. Number 7, he was never afraid to speak up, even when it made things a little uncomfortable. His candor, refreshing. His courage, admirable. His timing, sometimes a little surprising, but always from the heart. Number 6, he valued collaboration. Ara appreciated the diverse skills and experiences of his fellow council members. Number 5, his passion for Lake Forest was unmatched. Whether development, infrastructure, or the future of our community, he cared deeply. Number 4, he brought a unique balance of logic and heart. Policy decisions weren't just about data for Ara. They were about people, neighbors, families, and the future of our city. Number 3, his passion kept us on our toes. He could deliver a sharp observation at just the right moment. Number 2, he held us and himself to a high standard, always asking, is this the best we can do? and often challenging us to do just a bit better. And the number one reason we'll miss Ara Goshgarian of Alderman of the 3rd Ward is because he showed us what public service looks like when it's personal, principled, and never about ego. Only about doing what's right for Lake Forest. Thank you, Ara. I've had the pleasure of serving with you going back to 3rd Ward Caucus, and these last 5 years have been great. Thank you so much.
Ara, so prior to joining the council, I was a scoutmaster, and we taught our boys the 12 points of the scout law. One of those points was to be brave. Most of the boys thought that was an ability to overcome fear, some fear, maybe going down a hill or climbing a big mountain. But being brave was also standing up for what's right. And when I think about your time on the council, that's what draws me to you, is your bravery to stand up for what's right. And I think your ability to do that is rooted in 2 things. One, extreme compassion for the city and where we want to go as a group. And secondarily, just your overall love for being a servant leader within the community. And so I look at you and your bravery, and it served as a role model for me now as a new oncoming council member, just finishing my 1st term. So thank you very much for your mentorship and your leadership by example. Thank you.
My turn. Well, Ara, big congratulations on the completion of your many years of dedicated public service to Lake Forest. Your tireless commitment and generous spirit have helped carry forward the legacy of our extraordinary city. I never could have imagined years ago, when you were my children's orthodontist, that our paths would cross again in such a meaningful way. It's been an honor to serve alongside you this past year on the City Council, representing Ward 3. Lake Forest has been truly fortunate to have your leadership. Through your unwavering devotion, you've not only strengthened our community, you've made it safer. Your determination in securing a fire and rescue boat for our fire department is just one example of the lasting impact of your service. It has quite literally helped save lives in our community, thanks to you. Thank you, Ara, for your countless contributions to our city, for your service to the people who call Lake Forest home, and for the personal support you've shown me. Congratulations, and with deep gratitude, thank you.
Ara, you have 3 minutes.
I'm going to start out with a
You say
lie.
3?
I'm going to start out with a lie. I'll keep it brief. First off, thank you all for your comments. They're very kind, very sweet. I have enjoyed my time on council. They say the 2 happiest days in a boat owner's life is the day that they buy the boat and they sell the boat. That couldn't be further from the truth here. I came on council with a level of trepidation, knowing that we had been through an upheaval, and I was a little worried. And I think we all grow into our roles, and I'm leaving knowing that we're in extremely, extremely capable hands. You 8 that are up here, and then I know that Nick, when he steps up here, is going to rise to the occasion and do a wonderful job. But I do leave with a level of sadness because this is truly enjoyable. And I think service is probably one of the most important things any of us can do. I just want to start out with some general thanks. First off, I have to thank my wife, Christine, for being so patient with me, being so giving of her time, and allowing me to pursue this for the community that I love, and my daughters, Grace, Clara, Lily, and Caroline. Next, I do want to thank the Lake Forest Caucus. As Pete pointed out, that was not my first experience with the caucus. My very first experience with the caucus was before I even went on the caucus, and I was asked if I would interview for BRB, Building Review Board. Now, what in God's green earth an orthodontist needs to do on the Building Review Board, I have no idea. But I interviewed, and I was denied. And I thought, well, that's just the way it goes. This is a process here, right? And if you want to embrace the city and city governance, you have to realize that
The caucus has a purpose and a function, and almost all the time, 99.5% out of 100, they do a great job. My experience went a little bit further. I served on the caucus for 3 years, and I served with Pete. I served with Eileen. Was anybody else on caucus when I was on caucus? But it really allowed me to learn more and the value in the caucus system. And I know it has its detractors, but it really does educate the community. And I would strongly encourage any and all who are interested to pursue that experience. And as Pete had recited, I interviewed at the same time with Jim Preschlack. Quite honestly, the best man won. Jim Preschlack was undeniably a far more qualified individual than me. And when he was nominated, the only thing I could do was pick up the phone and say, congratulations, I'm excited for you. How can I help? It's never good to say this is the way people should act or behave, follow my lead. But I really do think in the city of Lake Forest, that is the appropriate response. When the caucus vets all the candidates, I think generally speaking, a committee of 43 usually makes the right choice. And I know in my situation it is, and I think that has held true prior to that and then moving forward. I have a great deal of trust in the caucus. I do want to thank the residents of the 3rd Ward. I had a lot of interaction with, they were always polite and cordial with every interaction, and it was very much a positive experience. And then I do want to thank staff. Now, I don't want to go through all of my experiences with staff. I've been reaching out and talking with them individually. I don't want to embarrass anybody, and God forbid, I don't want to forget somebody. So I just do want to throw out a blanket thank you to the staff. I think they are incredibly professional. They're as dedicated to the city as anybody could possibly be. As far as the folks I've served with, top of the list, I have to thank Jed Morris, former Ward 1 alderperson. Jed was a finance chair, and Jed was very giving of his time. And my definition of Jed, the descriptive I used, was Jed was a true gentleman. Jed and I still interact, and I'm eternally thankful for my experience with Jed Morris. He still continues to this day contributing. You may laugh, but I don't. Ray Bushman. Occasionally, Ray and I disagreed, more often than not. And Ray was always happy he would always say, I'm happy to discuss. Our interaction has carried beyond our joint tenure on city council. And although Ray and I often disagreed, Ray was always very cordial with me. And Ray, I doubt you're paying any attention, but I want to thank you for offering me different perspectives. You would get me going at times. My face would get red, but there was value in that. And being pushed on your decisions, I think, adds value to any discussion. Jim Preschlack, I can't say enough about Jim. Caucus member, Historic Preservation Commission, HPC chair, co-alderman, ongoing dialogue. Jim and I talk regularly. He wanted to know my viewpoints, and I shared with him. I asked him of what his were. But most importantly, the thing that really struck me about Jim Preschlack is Jim was an institutionalist. I do believe in this institution, and I think in a time when people are willing to tear down institutions, I think we have to stand up for those institutions. And I believe firmly that Jim imprinted on me the strong belief that the caucus and what we have in place here in Lake Forest is important. Former Alderman Jack Reisenberg, I stepped into his seat. Jack was very kind, offering up time to me, advice and supporting me. Tim Newman, similarly. Former Mayor Rob Lansing. Rob was terming off, and Rob took a lot of time with me to coach me in terms of what this role was going to be like. And I want to thank former Mayor Lansing. And then I am going to mention former staff members, Sally Swarthout, Elizabeth Hollub, Carl Waldorf, Pete Siebert. They made a real impression on me. The institutions, the Lake Forest Caucus, the 43. It served this community well for over 90 years. I would strongly endorse anybody that the caucus brings forward just based on their work. The institutions of historic preservation. The preservationists hold a vital and key role in our community, and I think we always need to be willing to engage them and talk with them. Gorton Community Center, Croya, Lake Forest Hospital, the academic institutions, open lands. I think about all of these institutions that makes Lake Forest a special place. These are all volunteer. I am going to do a special shout out to some people that I had never met, but this institution has been in town for over 100 years. They're behind us on the church parking lot. My friends at the First Baptist Church. I was invited by them a couple years ago to come to one of their events with Pastor Todd Fletcher. And I have to be honest with you, living here my whole life, riding my bicycle past that church, driving past that church, walking past that church, didn't dawn on me that it was really there. And it's part of who we are as Lake Forest. I was incredibly thankful to have met Pastor Todd and all of his congregation. They're an important part of this community. Now, I do want to say, alternative perspectives. Lake Forest for Transparency. The podcast guys. Parents Care. And all the other localized action groups. I may not agree with you, but I applaud your interaction, and I would encourage you to continue to engage. You push us to do a better job. You push us to justify our actions and rationalize our decisions based on the best long-term interests of the community. We may not agree on certain issues, but you play a vital role in this democracy. So I would encourage you moving forward. Keep doing what you're doing. It's very important. You'll make us a better body and a better community for challenging this institution. Indeed, Pete, you had mentioned her before, Joann Desmond. Joann Desmond was a member of, were they the Action Group? I can't remember what the group was, but they were a group that was motivated against the third rail. And I watched those council meetings when Dr. Desmond and some of her neighbors just railed on then Alderman Tack, then Alderman Reisenberg, then Mayor Lansing. And it was a pretty harsh thing to watch. And Joann believed in the system, and she wasn't selected, and she ran against me. We had what I thought was a very fair competition, and the outcome of that election was in my favor. But what I got out of that was 6 years of interaction with Dr. Desmond. Joann and I probably speak regularly, I want to say once every 3 or 4 months. And I think in this day and age, it's critically important to engage people who we don't necessarily agree with or political opponents. I would consider Joann a friend. We still don't agree on several things, but I respect her and she respects my opinion. And the one thing that I got out of that election, other than the privilege and the honor to serve, was getting to know somebody in this community who has a lot to offer that I never would have met otherwise. So I want to thank Joann for doing this. And by the way, she didn't tune out. She's a member of the library board and she's a doer. So I applaud her for her continued engagement. Now I want to talk about the mayor, Mayor Tack. I didn't want to go through all 8 of us because I've already taken too much of my time, but I want to thank you for the trust that you bestowed upon me, specifically for being chairman of the Public Works Committee in the last 2 years. I do want to thank you for your open-mindedness and your tolerance of me. And what the mayor is referencing is a few issues in executive session, but Randy listened to me vent, and I can assure you that he and I came at things from different perspectives, and I let him know so. Randy was always patient with me. And Mayor, I can't imagine a better person sitting in the chair to my right now than you. I think you've been an excellent leader. I've been very pleased with everything you've done. And although we will still occasionally disagree, you're willing to listen to my thoughts, and I'm always willing to listen to yours. So thank you. I think you've been an excellent mayor. And then finally, I just want to leave with these final thoughts. I do feel very comfortable with the decisions that this council and the previous councils I've sat with have made. Always measuring change, not in years, but rather in decades. And I think that's how we have to look at this. I sincerely believe that the city is in a better place now than it was 6 short years ago, and I do believe we're in an upward trajectory. So I'm very comfortable, very happy on some level, stepping back and having Nick take this chair. I think he's going to do a fantastic job, and I want to thank you all for being tolerant and being so welcome. So thank you very much. That's nice of you.
What time did that meeting get over? About 11 at night?
I think the meeting finished at about 9:15. You know, traditionally, as you have a changing of the guard, council goes out as a group unofficially, and we do not talk about city business, so there's no violation of the Open Meetings Act, and we just get together and have fun. So it was really nice. I was really excited for Nick Bothfeld to come on board. Nick is going to be my replacement at 3rd Ward. Nick, if you look up his bio, he's an incredibly bright guy. He's going to bring a lot to the table, a lot of expertise. And I've known Nick for a while now, and I feel really comfortable with him. So I think we're in great hands. And I have to say, compared to some of the previous councils I've sat with, this is a council that gets along. This is a council that is willing to discuss things, given the appropriate prodding. And I have a high degree of confidence in them, and I think we're in good hands. So I'm sleeping well at night.
So you were on, just for our audience to know, you were on the term limited time of 6 years, 3 two-year terms. You were elected in 2019 and then reelected 2021 and 2023, and your election in 2019 was contested, but you won nonetheless against Joann.
Yeah,
Desmond.
Joann Desmond, Dr. Desmond. I have a lot of respect for her. I do. I saw that head shake there. You know, look, there were some issues that were very important to folks in our neck of the woods. There was a third rail issue that came about, and Joann felt very passionate about it, wasn't entirely satisfied with the way the city was doing things, which I think was the right way to do it. Anyhow, I had gone through the caucus process and I was selected, and she has every right to run. We ran a very fair campaign. We stayed focused on the issues. The voters made their selection. You know, I was grateful to have met her, and Dr. Desmond and I actually keep in touch. I think, you know, listening to the opposition can be beneficial, can make you a better candidate, and can also make you a better elected official. Joann has continued on, and she serves on the library board, and I understand she's doing an excellent job there. So very grateful to have made her acquaintance, and I think she's a super bright person. So I have
Talk
nothing
too much about Joann, Ara. Let's talk about you. Come on.
Shut up. Shut up. I'm not your typical former.
You're not a politician anymore. You can let it.
Shut up, Pete.
Thank you. I respect that.
Yeah.
Ara, let's get to the important stuff.
Yeah.
You were a ball player back in the day. You're old school. Is that true? Am I looking at these newspaper clippings? You were a fullback for the Scouts?
I was a fullback for the Scouts. Yeah.
Talk to us about those days, Ara.
So I was in the class of 80. That was when Lake Forest High School was on the rise in terms of their football program. The North Suburban Conference is vastly different now than it was before, but
Of course.
my class, the class of 80, we lost over a 4-year period of time. We only lost one conference game. My class held the honor of being conference champions all 4 years. Played football with some really great players. Lenny Torelli, number 1, Neil Riley, number 2, George Brophy, number 3, Glenn Heidbreder. But Skoo was on the sideline. Skoo was a ball boy, and we really appreciated all he did for us.
I held on to the ball more than Brophy did.
We'll
edit that out.
George Brophy.
Brophy will be on our show next week, folks.
Brophy,
No, he won't.
He was the reason for a lot of our success. I do want to say, though, that Skoo's sophomore year, he got promoted to water boy, and he got on the field, which was wonderful. Sometimes we had to shoo him off the field, though, but that's okay.
Skoo was more of a baseball player, right?
He was in the rec.
He was a rec rat. Yeah.
So was this the era of the? Sorry, pardon the pun. Was this the era of the Wishbone offense?
Boy, we still played the Wishbone.
The unstoppable.
The reason it was unstoppable is it was so old and so antiquated. They didn't know how to defend against it, and
they can't stop it now.
Because it's so old and it's so antiquated, and that means that they do an entire season of prepping for normal offensive sets, and you play something that's from the 1920s and people scratch their head. So but yeah, it was Wishbone offense. Our coach back then was a gentleman by the name of George Berry. He scared us all. George was an Army Ranger. He served in Korea. And we were terrified of him. So whatever Coach Berry said, we did. We had one water break over a 2.5-hour practice period, and that was it. And whatever he said goes. It's a vastly different time now. I think we have to be more mindful of the health and safety of the athletes. But back then,
their feelings.
Coach Berry really didn't care about feelings. So. Anyhow,
so as a lifelong Lake Forester era, what was the next step in the process? So you're a big man on campus. Well, medium size man.
I was medium. I was medium.
Medium.
BMOC.
When did you start figuring out you're going to dig in somebody's mouth?
When I was in college, my father was an orthodontist, and that always kind of intrigued me. So went to college. I played small. I should say Division III football.
Where at?
Carroll College, Carroll University now, up in Waukesha. And I went up there for 4 years. I had a lot of fun. And then I went to dental school at the University of Illinois, right down the road from where Randy Tack did his medical training. And then I did my orthodontic residency at Loyola University out in Maywood. So I lived in the city for 7 years, Pete. So I have some city blood in me.
Really?
Yes, sir.
That's what happened.
I lived in Little Italy for 4 years, and then I lived up. Yeah, I was right down the street from corner of Laughlin and Taylor. What's that called? The Rosebud, the original Rosebud.
Yeah,
I saw
Sinatra.
I saw Frank go in there a couple times with a couple of torpedoes surrounding him, and it was a sight to behold in the 80s, seeing Frank Sinatra walking around. And then I lived up on Southport in the Lakewood DePaul area. And
of course
I'd drive out to Maywood. So I had a few fun times out there. So yeah.
So what brought you back to Lake Forest? Because you're going through the same progression as a lot of Lake Forest.
A lot of us, I just have a deep, abiding love and respect for the community. My father was practicing here at the time, and when I got out in practice, I worked for him. And then I bought his practice, which I often would remind my siblings of. I bought the old man's practice. It wasn't given. And then I set up shop here. And then I met my wife, and we have 4 beautiful daughters, one of which is getting married at the end of the month. I have a big, busy month ahead of me. I made parole from city council, and
you served your 6-year sentence.
My tour of duty, and then the twins are graduating. Grace is also finishing her DNP down in Tennessee. Grace is graduating she's getting married at the end of the month. So I'm still kind of functioning in the red for the next 30 days. So, and then hopefully I was chatting with John Burke, our police chief, about a week and a half ago. And he said, do yourself a favor, take 10 minutes for yourself when it's all done. And I said, that's probably about all I'll get. So anyhow,
when'd you get the volunteering bug? Like, how'd you get sucked into this thing?
Oh, Pete. So the volunteering actually started way before city council and the caucus. I've been serving in one capacity or another within my healthcare association, American Association of Orthodontists, going probably 23 years. And I finished my last commitment about 2 years ago, which was Council on Governmental Affairs. So I was going out to Washington, unfortunately, too much. But I was president of the State Society, president of the Midwest Society of Orthodontists. I was in the House of Delegates for over 10 years. So the volunteerism kind of comes from there. And then years ago, a fellow by the name of Michael Ward reached out to me and then got me interested in local service, which really was kind of my jam. I kind of enjoy it. So I tend to talk a lot. And
very well, I might add. Much better than me. You should do a podcast.
So
did you start with the caucus though? Like, how
let's go with my interaction with the caucus. So my first caucus interaction was somebody reached out to me and wanted me to interview for the building review board. Why? I don't know. But I thought I knew about
that sign's crooked. Get an orthodontist to fix it.
Right. No, listen, that's a very high functioning board. But I interviewed for the BRB and I wasn't chosen. Surprise, surprise. And I understood it, and I thought, well, this is part of a broader design. And afterwards, Michael Ward reached out to me from the 3rd Ward, by the way. And he said, would you be interested in serving on the caucus? And so I chatted with a few people, and I thought that sounds like fun. I did know Skoo had done it prior to me. My friend Lenny Torelli, as well as others, had served. And I thought that would be enjoyable. So I did my time with the caucus. At one point, shortly after that, they asked me if I would be interested in running for school board. And I said, absolutely not. Given my profession, I don't think that's a good place.
Joe was on a school board?
No, I didn't know that.
219.
Did you know Skoo was on the Parks and Rec board?
No, I didn't know that either.
This is gonna be a good show.
Anyhow, fast forward. Again, speaking to the caucus process, which I think works really well, in spite of what you think, Pete. No, I think you think the process works well. You just didn't care for some of the actors. If I were to read the tea leaves, but I won't. That's just my opinion of what you think. All right. I was asked to interview for Ward 3 Alderman back in 2018. Went through several interviews. And ultimately, I got the phone call. We went with somebody else. And I said, well, who is it? And they told me it was Jim Preschlack. The next phone call I made was to Jim. And I said, Jim, congratulations. I'm excited for you, whatever I can do to help. And he was the better candidate. Didn't get angry. Didn't pick up my ball and go home. Didn't want to do anything other than say, hey, this is the way it's done in town. Lo and behold, a year later, they called me up and said, would you interview again? And I thought, all right, well, 3 times I'm out. I did interview and I was chosen, and the rest is history. So had that contested election. I thought it was a well-run election. I really wanted everything to be above board. I didn't want to have it be about personalities or anything of that nature. And so then I was privileged to serve from 2019 to 2025. So that's it. That's my caucus interaction. Now, I would say this. There has been a contested election most recently, as we're all aware, knowing both candidates and trusting in the 43 when they chose Dr. Tack. Number one, I was going to be on that same slate of candidates. And number two, I thought, no, the caucus makes their choices for a reason. So I endorsed Randy. And I know it was much to the chagrin of some people, but I believed in the caucus process. And they do a pretty good job. Pete, I'm not saying they're always correct, but I think if you look at Lake Forest now, everything that Lake Forest is, most everything is as a result of the caucus in the process. So 90 plus years. So, and I'm excited for Regina Etherton, who's a new caucus president. I think she's going to do a great job. I know they have a big issue on their plate in terms of getting these new bylaws passed. But I would hope that the community passes it. And if they don't, then I would just say it's that same group of people who are always unhappy about something. So that's all I'll say about them.
So now I came into this, let's see, I was caucus 2019, 2020, whatever that was. I started this podcast to help the caucus, interview people, put the profiles up, transparency before transparency was a thing,
a phrase. Yeah.
And I did it for a couple of years, and I pushed a couple buttons. I'm an acquired taste. I get it, and I backed out. And I think I got more value to this town with the podcast than I do on the caucus. But in that time period, Ara, you've had to bite your tongue and listen to some of the crappy episodes that we've done. And what is some of the things that we just got to get straight on this show that we've really screwed up, starting with what Skoo has done?
Oh, Skoo's awesome. Skoo's awesome. She's wonderful.
No,
every Johnny Carson needs an Ed McMahon. I'm dating myself, right?
You are correct. You are correct, sir.
Or
I'm looking for a performance.
Every David Letterman needs a Paul Schaefer, right? So you want me to critique Skoo?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not gonna do. You bring up an issue, and I'll.
Oh, come on, man! You're off. You're
free.
Police station.
I would police station. All right. Let's talk about the police station.
Thank you.
Do we need a new facility for the Lake Forest Police Department? 100%. That was not done in the dark of night. We had discussed that. And the way these things are structured is we had to discuss that in executive session in order for the council to come to a consensus as to whether or not we were going to proceed. And there was very vigorous debate. And the mayor alluded to that in my last council meeting. I needed, quite frankly, to be convinced that it was the right thing to do. And I was initially a hard no. And then as the facts were presented to me, the value add that an adaptive reuse would have, I went from a hard no to a skeptic to a hardcore yes. It's the best thing. If anybody's walked through that existing facility, they're jammed in there like sardines. They do not have the room to do what they're supposed to do. Putting a second story on that building, it's on a floodplain. And I think somebody had pointed out that 200 feet to the east, there's a two-story building. And I say, yeah, 200 feet farther away from the Skokie drainage ditch or the Skokie River, whatever you call it. We could have sunk just as much, if not more money into that building and gotten a lesser result. So the new location was very appropriate. Police department does not need to be centrally located. The police are out in the neighborhoods. And I think we're probably going to build a world-class facility for about 55 cents on the dollar. The dark of night notion, that's farcical. The Open Meetings Act allows us to talk about certain things in executive session, like employment compensation, labor contracts, disciplinary actions, as well as purchasing of property and leasing of property. And I don't have the code in front of me. You can look it up, Pete.
Well, yeah, because if you guys talked about it in open session, someone would have probably started to go buy it and try to sell it back to you at a higher price.
That's exactly
sold the building at the price you guys got it.
And furthermore, we had discussed in closed session what we were willing to pay for it. And the last thing you want to do when you come to a negotiating table is to say what you're willing to pay.
Right.
You know, if we were willing to pay $7 million, well, the owners of that building would have said, well, the asking price is 7.5.
Right.
So that's not a way you enter into any type of contract negotiations. Henceforth, the importance of being able to hold your cards close to your vest. So the transparency component look, there's an Illinois statute that allows us to do that, and that statute was a well thought out statute. So there was no transparency issues. The location is perfect, and I do believe that the additional space that we have will be fully leased within probably 12 months of us occupying that building. So.
And you know what? As someone that spent the night in the old building, I'm probably really excited about this new building, and better for everybody. So from the consumers that'll be there, and
yeah,
we could talk to Mayor Tack about arranging a stay at the new building for you.
Softer pillows in the cell. Okay.
Please aluminum over cement, please.
Right. What else? What else do you want me to pick on poor Skoo about?
Well, Skoo, you
Parks and Rec, well, go ahead.
Well, Ara, what I want
Have
to do,
at it.
what I want to do at this time is we couldn't have you on the show for a long time because my opinion is, you and the other aldermen were saying, you know what, don't go on that podcast, don't go on any podcasts. And what I'd like to do is kind of clear the air here. There's nothing funky going on behind the scenes. Maybe there's a communication thing going on behind the scenes, like the law board and the Parks and Rec board. Mm-hmm. You guys have been talking about that for a year, and we bring it up at that 21st council meeting, and then everybody loses their shit. What's going on behind the scenes there? People are thinking you're trying to pull a fast one, especially with the legal for the oversight. Like, what isn't the public getting that we could clear the air here that you're able to talk about, Ara?
Oh, you're wondering if we've gone Doge, right?
And you thought Prue was going to wipe everything out.
Now, hold on. So let's take these one by one. Let's take these. So the park board, and I know Skoo is going to argue with me on this, but
good.
Every single board in the city, with the exception of one, is an advisory board. They can vote on something, but it's a vote on a recommendation. So the budgets, the fee structures, the policies that are brought forth within the rec department are just voted on at the board level as a recommendation to city council. So it's a recommendation. Now,
they're rubber stamped.
No, that's not true, Skoo. You're absolutely wrong. You're absolutely wrong.
Okay.
And I'll give you a good and
please do.
Okay. So the park board about 4 years ago made a recommendation for the visitor fee down at Lake Forest Beach, which at the time was $10 a day. The park board made a recommendation to raise it to $15, and that came to city council, and we looked at it, and there was discussion, and we decided that it should be $25. So there's your example.
That's a good example of going higher what it should be.
It's higher than it should be?
No, it should be higher.
Well, that's
a good thing the council did. As an advisory, they realized that it should be higher.
That's a decision for this council or the next. So
that was a good thing.
So to that point, the decisions that are made at the park board level are recommendations, as they are for every other board, with the exception of one. Pete, just for clarity, there's only one board that has statutory authority, and that's the Historic Preservation Commission.
Hysterical.
And what's that?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
He said hysterical.
Oh, no.
Stand up for what you'd see it, Pete.
Yeah.
Continue, Ara, sorry.
So when HPC does make an approval, that is binding. But when HPC does a denial, the petitioners always have the right to appeal to city council. And we've gone in favor and against of those decisions in the past. So so that is the only board that has statutory authority.
So Ara, let me ask you a question. If everything's advisory and the rec board is felt it's no longer needed, why don't you get rid of all of them?
Because of the vast amount of work that those boards do, especially the real estate boards, which is
Why
BRB.
was the rec board established in '96 then?
I don't know. You'd have to ask that council.
Wait, Skoo was on the board. Why?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, sorry.
The rec board's there to address issues that are approaching, and as well as fees and all that each year. And yes, they're advisory, but just because a board isn't really that active, I mean, I've never seen anyone on boards or commissions running to the mayor or council people saying, "I don't know what to do. I don't make any value in here. We should get rid of it."
Well, you haven't seen it, but I've heard it from people on the board.
Okay.
So, and to that point,
don't serve on the boards then if you're going to cry about not getting value or add value to the boards when you're
there have been people who have gone on the park board who have expressed concern that I don't feel like my time is best suited there, but they've done it anyhow.
Does the caucus put people on those boards? Is that
the caucus makes a recommendation, the mayor presents them, and then the council approves them.
But again, every board and commission goes through a lull of not doing stuff. And if you feel personally that you don't add value, then stop volunteering.
Well,
don't go run and say we don't need this. I'm not doing anything.
Well, so
but it is the point of the board. Let's say if we're going to talk about the rec board, the rec coming to the board. If we don't have stuff, here's what we can talk about. And if you don't want to have a meeting about talking about stuff, don't have the meeting. Well, but there's issues coming down the pike that probably warrant having the rec board still there.
What issues are you referring to? You might know more than I do.
Well, building's always been an issue.
Yeah. So
that's continuing to be.
That's a good point. And if I could speak to that point. Now, first off, I think you have to consider there are multiple perspectives we have to consider. Number one, the park board members themselves. Number two, the staff. And number three, senior staff. And then the fourth one being city council and the mayor. The input that we did get from staff, from senior staff, as well as city council was we didn't feel as though that time was being used efficiently, and which then begs the question, is there another way of doing it more efficiently? And there was an obvious answer, was to form a committee within city council of 3 aldermen, much in the way public works functions, and to meet periodically time to time as needed. Public works, although it's arguably the most busy committee, which I was a chairman for that the last 2 years, we would have lulls depending upon our work schedule where we would not meet. And I think that's a proper way to structure a board. Furthermore, for those more consequential or monumental decisions, to have a recommending board do that versus an elected official, I think the answer is clear. You want to have an elected official doing that. So much in the same way this most recent year, I sat on Public Works with Ted Notes, Rich Walther, and myself, as well as senior staff from Public Works. We were making decisions about contracts, about bids, about how to proceed, prioritization, that really should be focused in on an elected official who's managing an overall budget.
So I just want to understand the process. So would you go to the caucus and be like, hey, I want to volunteer and help Lake Forest? And they'll say, oh, hey, we got the spot on rec board, or we got the spot on finance board. And is that it? Or does someone come and say, hey, I want to be part of the rec board, and then the caucus vets them and puts them on it?
So Pete could probably speak to this better than me, and Skoo is a caucus expert, so he'll definitely want to speak to it. So there's a volunteer profile statement, a VPS, And
Okay.
so what one would do was they would say, well, we want you to go to our website and fill out your VPS, and you can look at those VPSs and see what their interests are. And they typically check off what areas of interest they have, be it on the BRB or audit committee or cemetery commission or rec board, which is good. And based on that, as positions open up, the caucus should review those volunteer profiles and see who wants to do that. Now, they have a huge database right now, and I think they probably need to parse through it, and they may be doing that. I haven't spoken with Regina. Joe Aridi and I talked a lot, and they just have a lot on their plate. Hey, filling 120 positions, it's a lot of work. And remember, those folks are all volunteers also. So we have day jobs, we have families, but there is a very specific route to take. So, and you can say, I don't know if any of these boards or commissions suit me. I just want to volunteer for helping select these people. So it's a well-oiled machine, but quite honestly, that's a burden to get people to volunteer for caucus because it's a big time commitment for them.
So the notion that by eliminating this, it takes away the transparency or the public input into how our parks and rec are run is false,
it doesn't.
right?
No, it doesn't, because the Public Works Committee, when we meet, and then the Rec Board Committee, when they meet, those are open meetings. The public is welcome to attend. During my meetings as chair of PW as well as PPL, Property and Public Land, there were points in the agenda where we had public comment. Now, nobody ever attends those, and I would encourage them to. I mean, those are important commissions or committees rather. So those are open meetings. We cannot have closed meetings in those. So the public can show up, and I would encourage them to, as Mayor Tack formulates.
What is PPL?
What is property and public lands?
Oh, what is that all about?
The disposition of basically the property that's within the city's control. Mayor Tack, when he came on board, because that was a committee that met sporadically, did disband that, but he's going to reformulate that again. I think, the reality of it is probably the police department, and that really popped up unexpectedly. That could have gone through PPL. Randy did not realize that at the time. That was 8 months into his tenure. And I think initially Randy was looking to try and streamline things and take things off of people's plates so we could focus in on more important things. And I believe Mayor now, again, because we'll have this new facility hopefully out with the police department, 33% of that building is going to be vacant. And if we are going to lease it, the appropriate venue would be through PPL. So I think Mayor Tack is going to reconstitute that, and those issues will go through PPL.
And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, no other department in the city besides Parks and Rec had a board that was directly associated with overseeing it or advising it or whatever the verb we want to use here was.
I think you're correct. Yeah. Now, I understand Skoo's perspective, though. We know we have a park department. It is not a separate entity. It's not a district. And that offers up a more accessible avenue for public input. But look, that is not going to change. The public is still welcome to attend those meetings. There's no question about that. So the opportunity for the public to share their thoughts and perspectives with those aldermen on that committee is still going to be available. So there will be absolute 100% transparency. But look, Joe, I know you were kind of busting Skoo's chops about you want a park district, and Skoo was saying, hey, absolutely, Skoo does not want a park district. He does. I mean, Skoo, forgive me for
I don't either.
For you. Well, no. I mean, state of Illinois has 6,730 local units or units of government. And the reason we have a pension issue in this state is because we have 6,730 units of government, and with each unit of government, you have paid employees, you have pensions associated with it. And if you consolidate some of these, you have an increased efficiency. So I think the way the city has it structured is the right way to do it. So,
and cities with park districts have higher taxes too. That's another point to point out is there are many park districts that have tax levies higher than the city government or the municipal government has in that town. So to go to a separate elected park district would raise our property taxes even higher than.
I'm not an expert on that, but I would tend to agree with you.
Hold on.
So
Ara, you're a Democrat? Are you sure?
Call me a conservative.
Is it 1963 or 2025? Holy crap!
He's
Ara.
a Fetterman Democrat.
I am a centrist. Let me put it.
I didn't want to go down the Doge route. Where I wanted to go down, Ara, was this recipe of, I don't care what you guys do with the rec board and the law board. I mean, it's the mayor's deal. You guys, you're closer to it. You make the decisions, but it seems to me like these things pop up where an action is taken that's been deliberated for a year, and anybody that's opposition to whatever the city wants to do, whoever that is, insert the name of the party here, it gives them fuel to say, well, we only heard about it for 2 weeks and I'm in an uproar. And then the same people come up, which is hysterical. I love the public comment session, and I don't know how you guys keep a straight face, but it's rinse and repeat the same thing. Oh, we weren't notified. Oh, you're not transparent. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's table it. How does this stuff keep happening with these people? Or no comment?
Well, again, I'm not going to speak to the thoughts of others. I'm not qualified to do that. You'd have to ask them that. But
sure you are. You're an alderman.
Some of them may not be qualified either, but that's another
story. No, I'm not.
There's always 5 people in every town, every government entity that are just insane. I mean,
outliers. Outliers.
Yeah, they're just crazy people.
But why do we feed the outliers? You have
to allow public comment. You have to. I mean, we're in America. It's a democracy. You have freedom of speech. I mean, the process is great. It's just that there's people that take advantage of it.
And I would argue,
Ara's doing. Someone's going to.
I thought you did a nice job in your farewell remarks.
Why are you wearing glasses? It's like
all the various people. I thought in your farewell remarks, I think you did a nice job praising.
I went through half a box
groups, including a shout out to this podcast. But you praised.
I didn't hear that.
You praised Lake. I heard it.
I shouted out to the podcast. I called you the
podcast guys.
Okay.
We're the podcast guys.
Right.
And then, but then Lake Forest for Transparency and Parents Care. And, and I've said this before on this show, but they have every right to say what they want. But freedom of speech is a two-way street. Then I have a right to say you're wrong.
But hold on. Why are we feeding them, though? Is my perception is we're feeding them if we're deliberating for a year, why are we giving 2 weeks for everybody else to find out about it? That's the perception. Or is my perception wrong, Ara?
You're right and wrong.
Okay.
I think that the city...
Spoken like a true...
All of us can do a better job at communication. And so bring the issue to the public eye in terms of public notification. The mayor made a comment. We've been talking about it for a year. I think the discussions behind the scenes may have been ongoing for about a year. And I had indeed participated in some of those discussions in terms of what are my personal thoughts, and I shared them. So the reality of it is, though, unless something's an actionable item, that's why we're required to publish an agenda. And it wouldn't make sense for any governmental entity to say, look, in about a year's time, we're thinking about doing X, or we're possibly going to do Y. Not until there's a sense of what direction we're going in is it going to come forward for public comment. So, can the city do a better job communicating? We all can do a better job of communicating. There's no question about that.
But it keeps coming up,
The
Ara.
state law.
Well,
hold on, Joe. Autopsy without blame. Going back in time, we're feeding the 5% outliers that are against whatever that we're trying to do for progress. My beef is, why are we feeding them by giving them fuel? And what I'm trying to find out is how to not to make the same mistake again. If there was a mistake, what will we do differently next time, Ara?
Well, I don't think there was a mistake.
Okay.
Done. And I'll give you a good example of how we're handling something exceptionally well. And I should stop saying we, I'm going to say the city.
Yeah.
I will go to the cell tower issue over by the West Side train station. There was public notice that came in front of Plan Commission. There was some pretty vocal input from the neighbors. The city took a step back and decided the most appropriate way to go about this is to engage a subject matter expert. So the city has hired an engineering firm which will have nothing to do with construction of the cell tower or ownership of the cell tower, and do an expert analysis, an overlay map, and offer us up possible suggestions. And one of my comments was, give us alternatives, because it's always good if we have alternatives. So I believe that issue will come back in front of city council sometime in this next term. And if I were to guess, I'm not a betting man, but probably within the next 4 or 5 months. And there will be ample opportunity for public input and commentary. And then I think city council will have to act in terms of, what the options are and moving forward, because I think we all can agree cell coverage in this town and many others is not adequate. I know you're going to say, Pete, it sucks.
Well, no, it sucks when your caucus leader goes up there and fights against it. That's.
Hey, Aaron, let me ask you a question. So Randy comes on and he gets rid of PPL.
Yeah.
Then he realizes we still need it. He gets rid of the legal commission, gets rid of the parks board. What happens? And now there's going to be separate commissions of aldermen. What happens when the aldermen go, oh God, this is too much work? Why are we getting rid of stuff when they're good backstops? Whether they're a lot going on at the time, I don't get that. And like you said, now he's re-implementing the PPL. I mean, I don't get it. You got good backstops. Maybe they're not used for a while, but eventually someone's going to say, oh my God, there's too much work on this park board commission for us to do. Why don't we have the park board? Let's reinstitute it.
So city council does have the ability to change that. So for now, I think the most appropriate thing to do is to take the direction that city council is authorizing moving forward with a committee of aldermen doing it. I can tell you this, again, probably the heaviest workload is a public works committee. And then as a chair, it's heavy +1. Did I think it was unbearable? No. And quite honestly, by the time you become an alderman, you recognize the time commitment that's involved. Now, if it happens, which I don't think it will, the 3 aldermen go to the mayor and say, I just can't take it. It's too much work, which I can assure you that likelihood.
Who wouldn't know that parks board members or wherever go whining to Randy saying, I'm just not of value? I mean, seriously.
I mean, but Skoo, I think that's everyone's fault, right? It's not just the committee.
Oh, absolutely.
No, but what I'm saying by everybody, I mean, residents, homeowners, us, on the show, if there's not a subject matter to bring up for an agenda for someone to talk about to stuff, I can see their point. I mean, if it's 5 people, the same 5 people, no one's showing up to a meeting, then fine. But I think the key word in this is more involvement on these committees to so people have content to talk about.
Agree, Jeff, but understand one thing, these boards and commissions, every meeting, there may not be stuff to talk about. That's not a bad thing.
Right.
I mean, they're there to facilitate what the city, they need them for that. But if there's not a meeting, if you don't have a meeting because there's no issues, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of an advocate of parent-run programs and somewhere that they could talk to. And it sounds like the 3 aldermen board would be the spot. But like, you know, if you
But that's
break
no
it down-
different from the rec board.
right. But I mean, in Tara's point is like, you're going to have people that are going to be more actively involved in stuff. I think the big problem is in any volunteer position, if you do something you don't want to, like, I remember 5-6 years ago, I offered to volunteer at Lake Bluff I forgot what it was, but then they offered me a spot on a beach committee. And I flat out told them, like, I honestly don't care. I'm like, about the beach. I mean, I love the beach. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be down at Lake Bluff Beach at that time, because there was construction project or something. So the worst thing you could do is volunteer for something you're not passionate about. Right.
Right.
So I think that would be, it's like running for an office you don't care about. It's like, well, I ran, but I shouldn't have, or I didn't want to. So I think the biggest thing is on any of these, we said we got rid of it, but technically it's suspended. They could always bring this board back if they wanted to. So we'll call it suspended.
Not really.
Now. Well, they could. I mean, it takes.
Yes, we can. Yes, they can. You can reconstitute that board very easily.
So you suspend it for now until you get members of the community that actually want to get.
Well,
together.
it's not
Be
suspended.
part of it.
It's not suspended.
Everything is suspended.
It was established by ordinance or whatever you want to call it, but to get rid of it,
It's
it's
terminated
still
by
gone.
ordinance.
Yeah, and it could come back by ordinance.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Eric, can you
But
explain?
here's my whole point. Here's my whole point in the question. If and when that was to happen, I can guarantee you, Jeff, that 3 or whatever aldermen that are going to be designated to do the new rec board will say, and eventually, it's too much for us to do. Why don't we do that? I mean, it will happen. I mark my words on that. So my question is, why get rid of something as a good backstop if you're not having meetings because there's not really stuff to talk about? What's the loss of money that is costing the city to get rid of these?
Maybe it was the right move to do a reset to get the right people in.
I mean, council.
My point again is the PPL. Randy thought, "Whoop, let's get rid of it. It's not doing a value."
PPL was not
Era.
Hold on, time out. PPL was not a.
I'm going to take a
caucus appointed committee, right, Ara? It was a.
I'm not talking about the caucus.
It was council members, a subcommittee of the council, right?
Example.
Right. Why don't you two have a little
apples and
warm
oranges.
milk? Era, we're in the fourth quarter of the show here. What should we be worried about? All the stuff that's, because, a board is like a podcast. You're trying to come up with stuff to talk about that's interesting,
Right.
And I hate pointing fingers without offering a solution, which I think parents care and the transparency people, if they could stop doing that, offer solutions. But what should be the things that we should be caring about that isn't in the public eye right now that you can talk about?
I think the way to word it too is where do you see Lake Forest going in like the next 5-10 years, right? Like what's the next step?
So, I had mentioned at a couple of previous meetings, my genuine concern moving forward is we are now currently in an excellent position fiscally, but there are a lot of things out on the horizon that are concerning to me. First and foremost, it would be the pension issue, which currently we have addressed, but there will be at some point in time litigation in front of the Illinois Supreme Court regarding the Tier 1 and Tier 2 status of employees in the state of Illinois, which would fall under school teachers, but also public safety, our firefighters and our police officers, firefighter paramedics, I should say. And that could significantly increase the pension burden, which is funded through our operating budget. That's a concern I have, number one. Number two, within that, and also within the other pension categories, we're going into some uncertain times. We're possibly going to go into a recession. I'm not speaking for or against any specific trade policies, but the capital markets really do concern me. We fund those pensions in large part. At least with the way it's structured now, there's a 60-40 split. So 60% of those funds are in the stock market, 40% are typically in bond funds. If we run into significant instability, the individual municipal body is still obliged to pay into those. We could see our pension obligations skyrocket. Additionally, given the state of affairs in Washington, I think all of those federal grants that we had access to that did disseminate down through us through the state of Illinois or various other entities, those grants may completely dry up. And the city's done a really great job over the last 6 years of utilizing those grants. That may completely go away. So I have some long-term concerns about the finance. Now, look, I would hope for the best, but plan for the worst, right? So I think where we are with the athletic fields and where we are with the police station, we're fine. But moving forward, I think we need to proceed very cautiously because we don't know what we don't know. So that's my biggest concern. So to me, I tend to be, I operate from a very conservative perspective financially. I'm not a big risk taker, and I'm really not a big risk taker with other people's money.
Did you almost call yourself a fiscal conservative there?
I almost did. Little C, not a big C.
Eric, can we close out on the grocery tax? Joe,
Yeah.
can you close out on the grocery tax? Ask that question.
Yeah, Ara, so the city adopted a grocery tax, but it really was just continuing the tax that had already been there. But you were pretty vocal about it, and you even you abstained from the final vote. Can you give everybody the background on that?
So little color on that, and this happened in Springfield, and that was passed in 1990. So the grocery tax was passed by the Illinois legislature in 1990. I don't know who who the governor was back then, and if I'm not Thompson. So we had a Republican governor.
Damn Republicans, they suck.
And Joe, you're the state aficionado.
Yeah.
Was the state Senate at that time Republican, and was the House Democrat?
Nope, it was a Democratic legislature.
Okay, so anyhow, they passed this grocery tax, and communities became very reliant and dependent upon it. And with the city of Lake Forest, our grocery tax revenue is $525,000. So it's collected by us, it goes to the state, and then the state gives us back 100% of the tax. Doesn't make sense, but that's the way it was. Governor Pritzker decided to abolish that state grocery tax, but gave not only home rule authority, but non-home rule authority governmental entities to reinstitute that. So my summation is it was a political ploy. And even though I wear the same jersey, I'm going to call a spade a spade. That was just done for optics, and I called it a political shell game. And I just don't want to be a pawn in somebody else's chess game. So I abstained. Do I think it harms the taxpayers in any way, shape, or form? No, because instead of the state having the ordinance or the statute, the city has the ordinance. But I also see it for what it is. So I just.
So the taxes, grocery taxes, are not going up; they're simply staying the same as they are now.
There's no change. It's
and if the city were to eliminate that revenue, it would probably be a burden then on the property taxpayer.
Well, then either we're going to have to trim the budget somewhere.
Hold on. When I was at my derby parties, people are bitching at me left and right, saying, "Why don't we use the surplus to cover it?" You got $3.5 million in surplus.
So that's a great question, Pete. So typically we budget and this should be a question for Jed Morris, whom is he and Jim Preschlek by far my favorite alderman. But we budget that way conservatively so we can have that surplus, and typically that funds our capital projects. So as we move into a new police station, as we move into the Deer Path streetscape, as we redo McLennan Reed Bridge, as we redo the various aspects, or as we fund a fire engine, That's typically what we use that surplus for. And if we don't do that, then we're going to be operating razor thin on what we have. And from year to year, we're going to have to increase our taxes and then lower our taxes, increase our taxes, lower our taxes. So it doesn't make for a level of stability, which is why budgeting conservatively is the most appropriate way of doing it, if that makes sense.
So when I'm at this party having my Miller Lite, I tell the person, shut the hell up. It's what's the rest of it? I understand shut the hell up, but I didn't get the rest of it. Don't use
we have the
surplus.
lowest municipal tax rate in Lake County.
Yeah.
But hold on, why are you hold on, I still don't get, why are you raising my taxes and they're just not using the surplus?
I didn't understand the question, Pete. What was that?
I got people saying that, okay, if that money from the state is going to go away to the tune of $525,000, why do we have to take it upon ourselves to institute that 1%? Why don't we just use the surplus to cover it?
Well, and that's fine. It was the will of the council not to. I understand.
You have a surplus now. You may not have a surplus other years.
Yeah, 6 years.
That's exactly right. But to that point, though, that
they'll all be gone then.
That $525,000 could be going to paving the particular street that you live on. It could be going to.
I don't have an alderman living on my street anymore.
It could. Well, my street has never been repaved. It could go to a stormwater project that affects your residential property. So if I just think that's foolish. I think allowing a city council to have the flexibility to address the capital needs is the appropriate thing to do.
Did most other municipalities do this as well? Do you know?
I can't speak. I don't know.
I don't know the percentage, but quite a few have. Okay. For the same reasons that Lake Forest did. But yeah, like we say every week when we talk about local stuff on this show, Lake Forest has the lowest municipal tax rate of any city in Lake County and perhaps on the North Shore.
My Lord, Kum Ba Ya.
And a AAA bond rating.
Kum Ba Ya.
I mean, it's true though.
You got a nice voice.
The reason your property taxes are high is because of look to the
you
school
sing
district.
In the band or you play bass?
Don't look to the municipal government. It's the school district that has the high property tax.
Are the credits rolling?
Yeah.
Ara Goshgarian, holy crap. Thank you for coming on the Lake Forest podcast.
Well, and I want to plug Ara real quick. Two of my three boys, and the only reason the third boy isn't with him yet is because he's 9, but we all go to Ara. He's the best ortho around, so if then you guys...
Yeah.
The Rob guy is going to want to come on the show now.
Yeah.
No, they're all good. They're all good.
Anything's got to be better than the Hull House dentist. That's what I had.
Thanks, guys. You guys have a good one.
Ara, thank you, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Doc.
The Lake Forest podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Michelle Parno has lived and worked in Lake Forest for over 2 decades. Michelle's lending experience, when combined with her real estate expertise, makes her an invaluable asset to her clients as they navigate their home buying or selling process. Call Michelle now at 847-528-8721, 847-528-8721. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Laracy & Company CPAs, founded in 2010 by Lake Forest's own Brian Laracy, specializes in tax preparation and bookkeeping services. Earning the People Love Us on Yelp award, their process is straightforward. Just upload, review, and file. For a free quote, visit LaracyCPA.com now. That's LARISEYCPA.com. I'm excited to share with you something special from our Lake Forest community, the Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa, located at 775 North Bank Lane in Lake Forest near Wisconsin Avenue. This just isn't any spa. They offer an amazing blend of traditional spa services plus the added benefit of medical procedures and treatments. In a relaxing and luxurious spa environment, you can enjoy a range of cosmetic and aesthetic treatments. These are all performed under the supervision of top medical professionals. The Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa provides skin care, facial rejuvenation, body contouring, laser hair removal, Botox, dermal fillers, chemical peels, and much more. What's great is that each treatment is tailored not just to enhance your appearance, but also to address specific skin concerns and to promote overall well-being. So if you're looking to pamper yourself and take your beauty routine to the next level, give the Aesthetic Lounge Med Spa a call at 224-768-8028 or visit them at their location on North Bank Lane. It's an experience your skin will thank you for.
We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters, Otto, John C., Helen, Herrick, JM, and Paul G.